Bumblebee, Bumblebee, tuna I love. What are you supposed to be?
Ha! That's a good one. What am I supposed to be? Way to go, honey.
You're a little crazy, Dad.
Ooh, that stings. We recently saw Bumblebee, the movie, with Hailee Steinfeld and John Cena. And this is a prequel to the other Transformers films. Now, did you see any of the other Transformers films?
No.
No, okay. Well, in my opinion, you didn't miss much. The original Transformers film, the first Michael Bay one, the original one is an animated one in the 80s, which this film actually gives some shout outs to, and they're really well done, by the way. But the first Michael Bay film was with Shia LaBeouf, and that was some years back. That one I thought was decent, actually, and you haven't seen that one. After that, they went downhill for me, anyway. The first one was okay, but having seen this one, I have different feelings about the first one. So you'd never seen a Transformers film before this? Any Transformers cartoons or anything? Had you seen any of that? No? All right. Okay, so you came into this completely a blank slate. What did you think?
I loved it. I loved how, like, she doesn't expect Bumblebee. It's just a car.
And this is Hailee Steinfeld's character, Charlie, we're talking about. Right,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Charlie finally gets this car that she wants without asking her mom or anything. And then she goes and she tries to fix it up and stuff like that. And then a part falls down. And she thinks it's like a car part and something went wrong. But then it turns into Bumblebee. And I like how Bumblebee thinks the wrench is going to be hard.
A weapon, right?
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't know. It's a tool that she's using to fix him, but he doesn't realize what it is, right?
And so that's how it gets in. But I love how they actually connect right after they do that. Like they get used to each other and then they kind of connect with each other.
Right. And of course, in that film that I was alluding to earlier with Shia LaBeouf, Bumblebee was the sort of the connection with the Transformers and the humans in that film too. And in that film, he was a Camaro. He wasn't a Volkswagen Bug like this one. And his connection point is Shia LaBeouf's character. And they got along, and they had a certain friendship, but it doesn't equal what Charlie has with Bumblebee in this film. I agree. For my money, she was great. I mean, I saw the movie through her eyes. I enjoyed her character a lot. She was completely immersed in that character. There was never a moment where I thought she wasn't talking to Bumblebee, the robot. I mean, I thought she did really well with that. So, did you like her character?
Yes, I did.
And you liked Bumblebee as a character. Were they your favorites? Did you have another favorite? Who?
Bumblebee was definitely my favorite. I liked Charlie. I liked the little brother.
Otis.
Charlie's
I think his name was Otis. Yeah, he was funny.
Yeah.
And that's interesting because the family. Again, I'm going to talk about that first Transformers movie that Michael Bay did with Shia LaBeouf. The family in that one, the father and the mother, they were okay, but they would go a little too far sometimes. It was a little over the top in that film, and you hadn't seen that one. And it would kind of spoil it. And as the movies went on and they kept bringing his parents back into it, it really got in the way of the film. I thought that was going to happen with Charlie's family this time around. I really did. And yet, that never happened. They went right to the verge of going over the top, and then they didn't, and it actually worked. The little brother worked. He worked a lot in the same way as in The Last Starfighter. The little brother in that one worked, or in The Goonies, the way the kids worked in that one. They fit, and they were necessary. The family was necessary for the plot of this, and I was never bored with their parts. Because a lot of times with these action films, when we start getting into that, in the first Transformers movie, it was like that. It's like, stay with the Transformers. They're the characters I'm here to see or whatever else. I don't want to see his family. I don't care. But with this one, it actually worked. They never got on my nerves to the point where I was like bored of their part.
Yeah.
So you like them? Mm-hmm. All right. How about the action sequences for you?
I liked them. There were a few parts with the bad guys.
The Decepticon characters,
yeah,
right?
Where I didn't really care for it. But then, like, the couple last ones, then I started to, like, actually get on. For me, it was a little bit like the Iron Giant started off slower.
Right.
But then it got, like, I loved it.
Right. And we actually, when we filmed the Iron Giant review at the end of summer, we've only posted it recently, but we actually made comparisons to Bumblebee's character, and that was from the other Transformers films because nobody had seen this yet. For Bumblebee being very similar to the Iron Giant.
Yes.
Like he could only communicate through his radio, and the Iron Giant only had a few sentences that he could say. And we made that connection. Now, it's interesting to me that all these critics now are coming out and comparing the film to the Iron Giant when we made those comparisons early on, way before anybody had seen this film. And it is. It plays a lot like the Iron Giant in some ways. It borrows the best bits from the Iron Giant, which is, he's this machine of war, and he can be a machine of war, but his relationship with Charlie is the crux of the film, just like Hogarth and the Iron Giant were the crux of that film. And it brings out, it's a window to humanity, in a sense. Now, at the very beginning, I don't know that this is a spoiler, but at the very beginning, we're on Cybertron, and Bumblebee actually speaks at that point. And I didn't like his character as much with his voice at Cybertron and everything. He was so much, I enjoyed his character so much more once he got to Earth. And there's a reason, they give a reason why he loses his voice. And this retcons a lot of the stuff in the Shia LaBeouf film. And it does it very cleverly and very well as to why he doesn't speak and everything else, and how he develops the ability to speak through the radio, which I enjoyed that quite a bit. And the radio also plays into the soundtrack, and the soundtrack for me was phenomenal. It was, I don't know that it was my favorite part of the movie, but it very well may have been. We were in the parking lot of the theater, and I was on my iPhone buying the soundtrack before we left the theater because it was so great, and we listened to it on the way home, and I loved it. That one and the Deadpool 2 soundtrack for me, I said this with Deadpool 2, they brought out the nostalgia for me far more than Ready Player One, which the purpose of Ready Player One is to draw nostalgia out. This film, it looked like it was filmed in the 80s. I felt like I was sitting there watching either The Karate Kid or The Goonies. It had that kind of feel to it for me. And the music played right into that and gave you that atmosphere, but the look of the film in some ways, especially, I'm not going to give this away because it's a spoiler, but one of the last shots of the film where they're looking at the Golden Gate Bridge. That's all I'm going to say. But what they see on the Golden Gate Bridge, what Bumblebee does, and then where Bumblebee eventually winds up on the Golden Gate Bridge next to another vehicle, absolutely, I actually wanted to go out and get back in line and go back and see the film again. And that wasn't the only part that made me want to do that.
I like what Charlie said, too.
Yes, and it was so well done, so well written. They even use Stan Bush's "The Touch," which is a song from the original Transformers animated film in the 1980s, which was a huge touchstone for so many kids, because especially in that film, what happens to Optimus Prime in that animated film. But that piece of music, they actually put it in this film, and it's used very cleverly in this film. And I thought it was a great shout out to that. And there's so many great moments in here. This should have been the first Transformers film for me. The creative team involved in this film, I wish they'd done all the Transformers films. They should do all the future Transformers films. And I think the writer was Christina Hodson, and the director is Travis Knight. And this is a lot like, in a sense, we just saw the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse film, and that was written by Phil Lord. And he's the one that wrote the Lego movie and also was involved in Solo. And that really makes me wish we'd gotten to see the Solo film that he and Lord and Miller had done, because now I'm wondering if that
really wouldn't have been better, because they seem, that group and this Travis Knight and Christina Hodson, they seem to understand this material from the 80s and what have you, and they understand how to update it. So I really makes me want to have seen the Solo film, because
You know, when all that stuff happened with Solo and they brought Ron Howard in, I thought, oh, they were messing it all up, and they brought Ron Howard in and he's going to steady the ship and everything. But now I'm wondering if maybe they wouldn't have been better suited to tell a Star Wars film. There was the 80s nostalgia, but there was the story, there was the correlation to the Iron Giant in some ways. Was there anything about the film that you didn't like?
No, I liked a lot of it.
What about the bad guy, the military guy? John Cena is the actor's name. He's the guy with the crew cut and everything, and he was sort of out to get the Transformers. Did you like his character?
He was okay. Yeah.
Right. I thought it was not going to work. I was afraid we were going to have a John Turturro moment from the Transformers films. He actually did fine. I mean, he's a little bit, he chews the scenery a little bit, but his character actually developed throughout and grew on me throughout the course of the film, and I came to like that. So he didn't ruin it. The military part didn't ruin it. It was just enough, because there's scenes even in the trailer where they show like Bumblebee being caught by the military guys, and it looks like in the original Transformers films from Michael Bay, that same thing happens. And I thought, oh, we're just going to go down the same road. But it's done differently. It has effect. And like I said, this film ties into the other films that basically, even though they were filmed before it, in time they come after it. It sets up the other ones to the point where this makes the first Shia LaBeouf, Michael Bay Transformers film better, in my opinion. Although it's not as good a film as this. But this will raise the value of that particular film. I don't think it can save the other ones after that, but it does do that. Anything else you want to say about it? What was your favorite part?
Ooh, a lot of the parts where he used all of the songs when he was messing with the dial.
Right.
All of the songs.
I know there was a funny part that you liked where they were on the beach. Do you remember that?
Oh, I think it was when he goes.
Well, she's trying to teach him to.
Yeah.
He can turn into a car. He can be a robot, and because he's a robot, she takes him to the beach to say, people can't see you. So what are we going to do about this?
And then she teaches him one, and then he's good at it.
She teaches him to hide.
Yeah.
As a car. She wants him to transform as a car.
And
so
then
then she's testing him.
And then she goes behind a rock, and she's like, okay, someone's here. Go on, hide. And she goes behind the rock, and he's in the sand.
Right. She's behind this great big boulder, and she's small. She's behind this great big boulder hiding. She goes, hide. And she runs behind the boulder, and then she looks out from the boulder, and he's behind this little tiny rock, and he did not transform into a car. He's just trying to hide behind a rock that's like 1/8 the size he is. And it's hilarious. And this was a film, I haven't heard this in a long time, but this was a movie where the audience that we were with, they laughed a lot in this film. And they laughed at things they were supposed to laugh at, as opposed to things that were awkward or they were laughing nervously. They were legitimate laughs. Like, again, I remember in the 80s being in movies and we laughed as an audience together. And I don't find that so much in movies anymore, but we did that in this one.
Yes.
A lot of people laughed and they got the jokes. And you didn't have to be a Transformers fan to get the jokes, because you and Colton were laughing too. But if you were a Transformers fan and you knew the history, it actually added a whole nother level to it, which was a lot of fun. So, all right. Anything else you want to say about it?
Nope.
All right. Yummy or crummy for you?
Yummy,
Yeah,
definitely.
Definitely yummy for me. I think seeing it multiple times would only give you, it would only be more fun. You'd find more things in it that I'm sure I missed and that I didn't point out to you guys. It was a great film. And even though they were at the beach, there was no tuna. You're not going to sing it?
Bumblebee, tuna. Yeah, I know.